They were clapping, but it didn't feel like celebration. It felt like a performance, one I wasn't meant to star in. Balloons hung limp from the ceiling of the Dynexon Systems conference room. The "Congrats" banner already starting to peel at the corners. Mason Caldwell stood in the middle of the room. Loose tie, champagne in hand, and that smug little smirk he always wore when cameras weren't around. To Luna, he called out, glass raised high, the woman who helped us lock in $18 million with Greencore. That's one hell of a win. People cheered. Someone even whistled. I nodded, smiled politely, shook a few hands. I knew every face in that room. I'd worked beside most of them for almost a decade. Late nights, emergency calls, endless revisions. I had bled for this company. And yet, standing there, something in my chest tightened. Mason leaned in close during the toast. Just enough so no one else could hear. Big raise coming, he said softly. We take care of our stars. 2 taps on my shoulder. Like I was a pet. I didn't feel like a star. I felt like a placeholder. And as the cheers faded, a voice in my head whispered what I already feared. This wasn't a celebration. It was a send-off. I should have gone home after the toast. Should have accepted the cheap champagne, the hollow compliments, the half-eaten cupcakes, and left quietly like they expected. But something in Mason's eyes kept echoing through my mind. The kind of look that doesn't celebrate you, but studies you, measures you, prepares to discard you. So instead of heading home, I slipped into the side office near the stairwell, the one no one uses unless they're trying to avoid a meeting, and opened my laptop. I had one last Q&A session with a Greencore analyst scheduled for the next day. And I figured I'd prepare some final notes. That's when I saw it. An internal email. Subject: Final draft. Greencore Systems proposal. Sent. 6:27 p.m. 30 minutes before the toast. Curious. I clicked. There it was. My entire proposal. The one I'd spent over a year building. Every line of code. Every infrastructure diagram. Every annotated logic flow I'd developed while eating dinner at my desk. It was the final version. Clean. Concise. Strategic. A blueprint I could have authored in my sleep. Only one thing was wrong. Document author: Ethan Rowe. Director of Strategic Operations. Not me. Not even my department. I stared at the screen. The cursor blinked like it knew something I didn't. This wasn't just a clerical error. This wasn't someone forgetting to add my name to a shared draft. This was deliberate. This was theft. The toast hadn't been for me. It had been for the handoff. I closed the laptop gently, as if slamming it shut would make the truth worse. I sat for a long moment, letting the air settle around me, then checked my calendar. There it was. New meeting invite. Craig Montgomery and HR 8:40 a.m. tomorrow. No subject, no agenda, just vague enough to smell like betrayal. I arrived 3 minutes early. Craig was already seated in conference room B, hands clasped, jaw tight. Lorraine, our HR representative, sat beside him, legal pad in hand, corporate smile already loaded. They didn't ask how I was. Didn't pretend it was a casual check-in. Craig cleared his throat. We've been evaluating the team structure across departments. He began in a tone so flat it could have been copied from a PowerPoint slide. And we've decided it's time for a realignment. You'll be transitioning into a new role, effective immediately. I blinked. I'm sorry? Lorraine jumped in, her voice annoyingly upbeat. It's not a demotion, Luna. It's a lateral shift. You'll still be involved in technical execution. We're just phasing out redundant management layers. Redundant. That word slammed into my chest like a sledgehammer. I had led the biggest proposal in company history. I had fixed flaws their own engineers missed. I had pitched to Greencore's board at 1 a.m. in my pajamas when no one else would take the call. And now I was being labeled unnecessary? Craig leaned forward, trying to look concerned. This isn't about your performance. It's just the direction we're heading in. Less hierarchy, more action. I wanted to scream, to flip the table and ask him who built the foundation of the system they were parading on LinkedIn. Instead, I nodded slowly. Got it. Lorraine smiled like I'd passed some test. We'll have a revised job description for you by end of day. I walked out without another word. My badge still worked. But when I tried to access the shared folders, I got an error. Access revoked. My office? Gone. Reassigned. Instead, a cardboard box waited for me on a desk tucked near the back of the floor, one I hadn't walked past since my intern days. Inside, my mug, my mouse pad, and a sticky note with my name scribbled like an afterthought. The final gut punch came when I double-checked the calendar invite from Craig. Sent. Tuesday, 4:06 p.m. The day before the toast. He'd scheduled my demotion 24 hours before he stood in front of the team and raised a glass to me. That raise he whispered about? A smokescreen, a distraction, a lie. I sat at that desk, a cubicle graveyard where ambition went to rot, and felt something inside me begin to burn. Not fire, smoke, the thick kind that starts slow, spreads quiet, but refuses to die out. They thought I would just shrink, disappear, be grateful for the scraps. They didn't know me at all. When I returned upstairs later to grab the last few items from my old office, the floor fell silent. Not one person made eye contact. I saw Brian, who just last week spilled Diet Coke on his keyboard while we laughed through a greencore deck, look right through me. It was like I'd already been erased. Photos gone, whiteboard wiped, Slack channel archived. Even the welcome mat at my office door was missing. I picked up my last folder and turned to leave, then heard a quiet throat clear behind me. Kara, my former data analyst, bright, brilliant, sharp enough to know something wasn't right. She slipped me a post-it. You didn't hear it from me, she whispered, then walked away. I opened the note. Check Craig's LinkedIn. I didn't wait. The moment I stepped into the elevator, I pulled out my phone, opened LinkedIn, and typed in Craig Montgomery. His profile loaded instantly. Still smug, still polished, still the curated image of corporate brilliance he wore like cologne. There it was, posted earlier that morning. Timestamp: 10:15 a.m. Proud to share the final strategic proposal for Greencore Logistics, built by our exceptional leadership team. Special credit to Ethan Rowe, Director of Strategic Operations, for spearheading the architectural framework. True innovation is never a solo act, but some leaders shine brightest under pressure. I stopped breathing. I stared at the image attached to the post, a clean, high-resolution diagram of the very infrastructure I had designed. My annotations, my system logic, my timeline metrics, all of it, except now the watermark had been replaced with Dynexon's logo. And Ethan's name was tagged boldly in the caption. Not a single mention of me. I scrolled through the comments. Dozens of colleagues, clients, industry partners all chiming in. Impressive work, Ethan. Can't wait to see it in action. Dynexon leading the way again. It was like I'd never existed. I wasn't just being excluded. I was being rewritten. I felt my throat tighten. Rage and heartbreak choking me at once. A bridge I had spent over a year building had just been set on fire while I was still standing on it. I closed the app. Let them have their fantasy. Their fiction. Because they had no idea. I'd already started writing a new story. 3 months ago, I took a solo weekend trip to Oregon. Everyone thought it was just a getaway, an escape after long months of stress. But it wasn't. That weekend, I filed LLC paperwork, registered a domain, and opened a secure bank account. Lunaris Consulting, LLC, specializing in infrastructure modeling, modular system design, and strategic deployment. I did it quietly, cleanly, and entirely on my own terms. No Dynexon resources, no conflicts of interest. Every file stored under Lunaris was created on my personal machine, in my off hours, based on public frameworks or proprietary concepts I'd been refining since my early career. I had built a fortress in the shadows, just in case. And now, that shadow was ready to move into the light. I logged into the Lunaris portal from my laptop. Sitting in my car, engine off, the Oregon air I'd bottled in memory 3 months ago suddenly felt like fuel. There it all was. My full architecture plan. Clean deployment maps. Optimized tech blueprints. An early version of the Greencore system, developed before anyone at Dynexon touched it. And it was better than the one Craig had posted. Cleaner, smarter, leaner. I began updating the pitch deck. Not out of anger, but out of certainty. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. Then, my phone buzzed. A name lit up that I hadn't seen in years. Gillian Madsen. We'd worked together a decade ago at a startup called Invertix. She had been my mentor, my anchor, one of the only leaders who ever saw my full value before I saw it myself. Her message was short, but it changed everything. Just heard some chatter. Greencore's replacing Dynexon's full tech team for rollout. No notice. Something feels off. My fingers froze over the keyboard. Craig hadn't just erased me. He was burning down the entire team I'd built. Probably to consolidate credit. Probably to save costs. Definitely to build a legacy that wasn't his. I stared at Gillian's message. Then I typed back. Thanks for the heads up. I think it's time I reached out. Not as Luna from Dynexon, but from somewhere else. I parked in the far east corner of the lot. The one executives never walked past. The one where I'd cried once during my first year at Dynexon when a client blew up over a deadline I didn't even own. Funny how full circle things come. The city buzzed around me. But inside the car, it was still. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. And then, I clicked open my voice recorder app. A few months ago, during one of our internal planning calls, I had saved some recordings. Not because I anticipated betrayal, but because I wanted to track my growth, my voice, my clarity. I hit play. Let's prioritize modular efficiency. Greencore's going to want scalable stability in 3 quarters or less. We build for growth, not just launch. That was me. Calm, steady, strategic. Another clip. Make sure legal reviews clause 9b. If we skip it, we're liable for their encryption stack. No exceptions. And another. Don't wait for them to ask. Let's bring them the solution they didn't know they needed. By the 4th one, my hand was trembling. Not from anger. Not from fear. From fatigue. Tears welled up quietly. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just the kind that sting behind your eyes when you realize you've given everything to a place that never truly saw you. I leaned forward, forehead pressed against the steering wheel. Blazer wrinkling beneath my arms. I let myself feel it, all of it. Then I sat up. And I opened the Lunaris proposal file. I didn't rewrite anything. I didn't over-edit. It was already enough. Later that night, I drafted the email. Subject line. Alternative proposal. Strategic framework for Greencore deployment. Gillian, I've been following the rollout discussions closely and noticed recent shifts in the implementation team. As a professional courtesy, I'm submitting an alternative framework for consideration, developed through Lunaris Consulting, LLC. All materials are original, independently retained, and fully licensed. Attached. Proposal summary, deployment timeline, technical schema, and licensing terms. I'd be honored if you gave it a look. Luna Hart, Principal Consultant, Lunaris Consulting. I hovered over send for exactly 5 seconds. Then I clicked. 10 hours later, at exactly 7:45 a.m., my phone buzzed. Gillian Madsen. Reply. Thank you, Luna. This is interesting. If everything checks out, we may need to re-evaluate our direction. Stay close. Stay close. Coming from Gillian, that wasn't a casual remark. It was an invitation. I didn't sleep that night. Not from anxiety, but from clarity. There's a strange kind of silence that comes when the panic finally burns out. When all the noise fades and you're left with the facts. No more illusions. No more waiting for recognition that will never come. Just you, the truth, and the decision to move forward or disappear. I chose to move forward. By morning, Gillian's message kept circling in my head. Stay close. Not wait, not maybe, but stay close. That wasn't corporate politeness. It was strategy in code. Gillian never said more than she needed. But when she said something, she meant it, and if she was circling back now, it meant the tides were shifting faster than Craig expected. By 9:30 a.m., the rumors had already started. I didn't follow Craig on LinkedIn anymore. But I didn't have to. Kara texted me a screenshot. Excited to announce our upcoming contract finalization with Greencore Logistics. Huge thanks to Ethan Rowe for leading this initiative from start to finish. Dynexon's leadership team continues to set the standard for innovation. And just like that, again, I was erased. My name, my work, my voice, gone. But this time, it didn't sting the same. Because now, I had something stronger than anger. I had proof. And purpose. That afternoon, I met Kara for coffee. We sat in the corner of a quiet cafe 2 blocks from Dynexon headquarters. Away from where anyone in middle management might wander by. She leaned in across the table, eyes darting like she was passing classified intel. "They think you burned out," she whispered. "There's a whole narrative floating around." "What kind of narrative?" I asked, though I already knew. "Craig said you asked for a lesser role to reset. Lorraine's been telling people HR offered you something stable during your transition. Ethan's been framing it like you couldn't handle the pressure." I blinked. They weren't just deleting me. They were rebranding me, repackaging me as someone weak, unstable, someone who chose to step back because she couldn't keep up. The same woman who had carried their proposal on her back for over a year. For a brief second, I imagined drafting a long post, a public takedown, an exposé, but then I looked at Kara, and I realized I didn't need to defend myself. I didn't need to scream. I had already sent the email. I had already claimed my name. The next day, I received an anonymous message in my inbox. No subject, one attachment, an audio file. I hesitated, scanned it twice for viruses, then pressed play. At first, just static, then, Craig's voice. "Luna isn't part of this anymore. She had her moment, but it's done. This contract doesn't need her name on it." A pause. "By next week, this thing is signed. She'll be a footnote." I let the words settle, like ash falling slowly in the air. Heavy, ugly, inevitable. He hadn't just cut me out. He believed the story would stick, that no one would question the version he crafted. But he'd made a mistake. He didn't know Lunaris Consulting wasn't just a shell. It was ready, fully structured, fully licensed, fully mine. He didn't know Jillian had already validated my legal standing. And he definitely didn't know what was coming next. 3 days later, I walked into Greencore's corporate headquarters, not as support, not as a shadow, but as myself. No badge borrowed from someone else. No bag carried for a higher up. No agenda written by someone in a title 2 levels above mine. Just me. Navy blazer, polished heels, portfolio in hand. Every inch of me pulled together not to impress, but to anchor. The front desk guard barely looked up. "Name? Luna Hart," I said clearly. "Principal consultant, Lunaris Consulting." He checked his screen, then nodded. "Conference room 5A. They're expecting you." My name was on the list. I belonged in the room. Each step down the hallway echoed with certainty. I passed photos of past Greencore partnerships, logos of companies far more powerful than mine. And yet, none of it intimidated me. Because I wasn't here to beg. I was here to offer a better solution. Outside the glass doors of 5A, a whiteboard listed the meeting attendees. And there it was. Craig Montgomery, Dynexon Systems. Luna Hart, Lunaris Consulting. 2 names, 2 companies, 2 fates. No Ethan, no Lorraine, just the man who tried to erase me. And the woman he underestimated. Inside the room, Miriam Santos from Greencore stood flipping through a binder. She looked up and gave a small smile when she saw me. "Luna," she said, calm and cool. "Welcome back. Back, like I'd never left, like I was always meant to be here." I placed my portfolio gently on the table. Not overflowing, just one clean, printed copy of the revised architecture plan I'd built alone. Miriam gestured toward the head seat. "You're leading today." I didn't have time to respond, because just then, my phone buzzed. Text from Kara. "He just walked into Dynexon like it's Oscar night. Champagne in hand. I think he brought a press release." Of course he did. Craig thought this meeting was a victory lap. He had no idea the finish line had moved, and he wasn't even invited. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This one from Jillian. No fluff, no build-up, just, "Keep it clean, but don't hold back. If they ask who built it, tell the truth." And that's exactly what I planned to do. Because the truth was simple. I built it, I scaled it, I protected it. Craig tried to steal it. Now, I would sign it, under my name, on my terms, without apology. I took a long, steady breath. The door opened, 10 a.m. sharp. Craig walked in, That smug little swagger he saved for boardrooms and photographers stitched across his face. His assistant trailed behind him, carrying folders and what looked suspiciously like a media kit. He scanned the room. His gaze landed on me. And for 2 whole seconds, he froze. Good. Craig recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. His trademark smirk wavered just slightly, like someone had tugged at the corner of his mask and it didn't quite snap back into place. Luna, he said, slow and syrupy, didn't expect to see you here. I didn't bother to stand. Didn't soften my voice. I simply looked up and said, "Good morning, Craig. We've already begun preliminary review." His eyes flicked to Miriam, then to the chair across from me, the only one left. She gestured politely. "We're reviewing comparative proposals. Have a seat." He sat, and for the first time since all of this began, Craig Montgomery no longer looked like a man in control. He looked like a man calculating, running numbers in his head, trying to catch up. The assistant beside him fumbled with the folders, clearly flustered. A press packet with the Dynexon logo peeked out the side. Craig didn't touch it. Miriam opened the meeting. Her tone was clipped, efficient. "We're here to finalize the deployment contract for the Green Corps integration. After reviewing both submitted proposals, we'll be making a decision by the end of this meeting." Jillian joined via video, her expression unreadable, but I knew that face. It was the look of someone watching a chess match 5 moves ahead. "Let's begin with implementation metrics," Jillian said. Craig tried to jump in. "If I may, Dynexon's legacy systems." Jillian cut him off without even raising her voice. "We've assessed Dynexon's systems. We've also assessed who actually built them." That line hit the table like a gavel. And Craig knew it. I remained still, poised, calm, not out of arrogance, but because I didn't need to explain myself anymore. Every diagram, every model, every forecast on the Lunaris deck was my work. And they had seen it, verified it, understood it. Miriam moved us forward. Lunaris Consulting's framework reduces onboarding time by 22%, decreases infrastructure overlap, and offers full scalability across Green Corps' international markets with 40% less maintenance cost in Q2 projections. It's modular, compliant, and fully licensed. Craig looked like he was trying not to blink too fast. I knew that feeling, when the tide turns and your footing vanishes. He attempted one last Hail Mary. "This is a one-woman firm. You're gambling on an operation without legacy resources or enterprise funding. It's a risk." I met his eyes, voice cool. "Not a gamble, Craig. A solution. One your team couldn't replicate without using diagrams they never had the right to touch." Jillian leaned in on screen. "We've already verified all legal structures. Hart retains 100% IP ownership of her proposal. It was never assigned to Dynexon. We've validated timestamps, technical authorship, and cloud storage chains. It's clean." Craig opened his mouth, then closed it. His assistant looked like she wanted to disappear. Miriam reached for the contract on the table. "We've reached our decision." I didn't need to ask. I already knew. For the Green Corps rollout, Miriam said clearly, "We will be awarding the contract to Lunaris Consulting." Craig stiffened. I could feel the tension radiate across the table like a second heartbeat. This wasn't just a contract lost. It was a narrative shattered. He whispered, "This is a mistake." I looked him in the eye. "No, Craig, the mistake was thinking you could bury the architect of your success and walk away with the blueprint." He looked like he wanted to say more, but there was nothing left to say. Jillian added, "And just for the record, we've contacted our legal team to ensure none of the proprietary materials in your LinkedIn post remain public. A correction is advised." Immediately, Miriam slid the contract across the table. My name was printed cleanly at the top, Luna Hart, Principal Consultant, Lunaris Consulting. Beneath that, in smaller print, the phrase I had added when I filed for the LLC. "All systems designed under exclusive Lunaris IP. 100% rights retained." I picked up the pen. I didn't hesitate. I signed. And it was done. No applause. No champagne. No dramatic music. Just ink. And truth. And peace. Craig sat motionless, fingers twitching slightly at the edge of the table. The deal was gone. His narrative was gone. And I was not. I rose slowly, gathering my folder. Miriam stood to shake my hand. "Thank you, Luna," she said, sincere. "It's good to see the right person in the right seat." I nodded. "Thank you for giving me a chance to prove it." I didn't look back as I left the room. Outside, the hallway felt different. Warmer. Brighter. Maybe it was the sun reflecting off the glass panels. Or maybe it was the fact that for the first time in months, I had stood in a room, not to survive, but to lead. The same woman they tried to erase was now the only one holding the pen. I stepped into the elevator. Phone buzzing in my bag. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. Because I had already written the next chapter. The morning after I signed the contract, I didn't wake up to confetti. No press release. No celebratory emails flooding my inbox. Just sunlight streaming through the window. The sound of the city waking up below. And a single, overwhelming feeling. Quiet. But not the empty kind. Not silence born from isolation. This was the kind of quiet that feels sacred. It was the silence that follows clarity. The kind that lets you breathe without bracing. The kind that tells you, you made it through. I got up slowly, made tea, and let it steep while I opened my laptop. There was no rush, no fire to put out, no Slack messages demanding last-minute changes to someone else's crisis. Instead, there was a calendar reminder. Lunaris Weekly Stand-Up 10 a.m. Team of 4, all hand-picked, all trusted. Kara was one of them. She'd left Dynexon 6 months after I did. She didn't give a big speech. Just packed her things, left her badge, and walked straight into Lunaris like she'd always belonged. "You sure you're not just building a quiet empire?" she teased once. I'd smiled. "I'm building something right. That's enough." And it was. Lunaris didn't grow with noise. It didn't need viral posts or investment hype. It grew with whispers, passed quietly from client to client. From one team who felt heard, to another looking for someone who actually listened. I took on only the projects I believed in. I turned down work that came with performative partnerships or impossible timelines masked as stretch goals. And for the first time in years, I slept well. I wasn't just free. I was whole. The kind of whole that happens when you stop waiting to be chosen, and start choosing yourself. 3 months after the Green Corps contract was signed, I walked past a bookstore downtown and stopped in my tracks. There, on the display window, was a business magazine. The cover, Leadership in the Post-Startup Era. Subtitle, Why Quiet Founders Are Redefining Power. And there I was. Small photo, minimal headline, no glamour, no flash, just this. Luna Hart, Lunaris Consulting. I stood there for a long moment. Not because I needed to see it, but because I wanted to feel what it meant. There was no bitterness in my chest. No rage, no residual burn from what Craig had done. Just something deeper, surer, like the earth beneath me had finally settled. Weeks passed, then months, then one night, I got the call. It was Jillian, her voice steady, direct. "Green Corps wants to expand," she said. "Full integration, 5 continents, long-term transition oversight. They want you. No bidding war, no middlemen." Then came the number. $60 million. I didn't flinch. I didn't ask if she was sure. I just asked, "When's the call?" That's who I had become. Not the woman begging for a seat at the table, but the woman writing the blueprint for the table itself. My team grew, slowly, intentionally. We didn't add roles. We added people. People who had been dismissed, overlooked. People with scars and smarts and stories like mine. We had one rule. No stars, no titles, just talent. We worked across time zones. We built systems at sunrise. We reviewed pitch decks under the glow of desk lamps at 2 a.m. on our own terms. And not once did I walk into a meeting wondering if I would be recognized. Because now I owned the room. One Friday night, long after everyone had logged off, I stayed behind in the office. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I pulled up the original Green Corps framework, the one I'd built alone in my apartment. Eating granola bars and pushing code until sunrise. I studied it. It was still good, but I could make it better now. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I'd grown. Every challenge had sharpened me. Every dismissal had taught me precision. Every erasure had fueled a clarity no one could fake. I no longer worked to survive. I worked to build. To leave something behind that didn't have to shout to be heard. Later that night, I walked home in the soft glow of city light. I passed the Ryle parking garage, the one Craig once stood in, where I cried after being reassigned to a cubicle with a sticky note. It was almost poetic. They thought they could fold me into silence. But I had used that silence to redefine the terms. Not revenge, not rebellion, just returning to myself. People sometimes ask me now, what would you say to the version of you who sat in that demotion meeting? I've thought about that, and here's what I'd say. Don't panic. They don't see you, but one day, they'll feel the absence of what you built. And by then, you'll be somewhere else. Better, calmer, louder in the ways that matter. 1 year later, my apartment felt lighter. I didn't change the furniture. I didn't repaint the walls. But somehow, the air was different, more space between each breath, less weight behind every morning. I no longer woke up dreading inboxes. No more wondering if my name would be on a deliverable. No more having to rehearse a calm response to a stolen idea. Now, the only thing I rehearsed was peace. I had created a life where my worth wasn't negotiable. And that, I've come to believe, is the purest kind of freedom. Dynexon didn't collapse overnight, but it cracked, slowly, predictably. Craig's resignation hit the business blogs with all the usual euphemisms. Strategic transition, vision misalignment, exploring new opportunities. But those of us who had been inside the walls knew the truth. The moment he tried to erase the wrong person, the entire foundation of his reputation began to rot. Clients pulled back. Internal audits were triggered. Whispers became questions. Questions became exits. One by one, the silent faithful left, not with grand statements, but with quiet resignation letters, handed off like truth bombs. I stayed silent. No viral post. No tell-all interview. No screenshots dumped for applause. Not because I was scared, but because I was free. Let them tell their version of the story. Mine was already written, and signed, with ink, with truth, with blood. I never let them see me bleed. Lunaris grew, but never outgrew its soul. We didn't chase headlines. We chased clarity. Our proposals were tight, our delivery clean, our team small, nimble, trusted. Clients started saying things like, "You all don't just meet deadlines. You quiet the noise." We've never felt more heard. That mattered more than any award. Because once you've been silenced, the ability to listen becomes a kind of superpower. Sometimes I'd get emails from people I used to work with. Some congratulated me from burner accounts. Some apologized. Some didn't say much, just a subject line like, "I remember. You were right. I'm sorry." I looked away. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't forgive them, but because I'd already moved on. You don't owe closure to those who watched you burn and stayed warm by the fire. Then came the call, the one that would shift everything. Again, it was Jillian, her voice calm, but excited. "Greencore wants to scale again," she said. 5 continents, multilingual infrastructure, multi-platform delivery, all under your supervision. And then came the number. $60 million. No bidding war. No drama. Just trust. I let the silence hold before responding. Then said, "We're ready." And this time, I meant it with my whole chest. Because we weren't rushing to prove anything. We were just showing up, with the right tools, the right values, the right name. Mine. I remember sitting alone that night. No music. No team huddle. Just me, my tea, and the glowing screen of a signed confirmation email. It wasn't the size of the deal that moved me. It was the fact that it had found its way to me, on my terms. Not because I fought for visibility, but because I let my work speak where I had been silenced. That's the thing about quiet power. It doesn't demand the room's attention. It just redefines the room. Craig's name hasn't been mentioned in a long time. People forget fast when your legacy is built on borrowed brilliance. But mine? It grew slowly, deliberately, like a root system. Invisible at first, but unshakable. And sometimes, late at night, I think about that moment in the conference room. When he walked in with champagne in hand, thinking he'd already won. And me? Sitting there with a signed contract and a quiet resolve. Not needing to say a word. That was the real victory. Because the loudest thing in that room wasn't Craig's entrance. It was my presence. I've learned that revenge is overrated. What matters isn't destroying the people who tried to bury you. It's building something they can't follow you into. Because they never understood the soil. They only saw the surface. So if you're reading this, or hearing this, and you've ever been overlooked, undermined, silenced, or shrunken in a space that should have made you grow, remember this. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to break things to build better. You don't need to fight the old system if you're brave enough to create a new one. Keep building. Keep trusting your name. Let them take the credit. Let them steal the slide decks. Let them post the photos. Because if you stay steady, and stay true, they won't be able to write the last chapter without you. And by then, you'll already be on a new page. Sometimes, the greatest power lies not in confrontation, but in quiet, unshakable clarity. Luna's story isn't about revenge. It's about rediscovery. About what happens when someone refuses to let their value be defined by a title, a system, or someone else's version of events. She didn't scream. She didn't burn bridges. She built new ones, and walked across them in silence, with ownership in her hands. We live in a world that rewards volume, the loudest pitch, the flashiest leader, the boldest claim, but Luna teaches us that consistency, integrity, and quiet strategy often outlast all of that. Her story reminds us that when we're underestimated, we don't need to beg for validation. We simply need to keep building, until the work becomes undeniable. And one day, the very people who once dismissed you will watch in stunned silence as you succeed without ever needing to say, "I told you so." If you've ever been sidelined at work, dismissed in a meeting, or had your ideas repackaged by someone else, don't just react. Document, prepare, and protect your work. Take time outside your job to build something that's yours, a consulting brand, a prototype, a small business, even a blog. Register your ideas, save your progress, invest in your voice. The world doesn't always reward the right person immediately, but when you create from a place of truth and preparation, your moment will come. Build like Luna, quietly, relentlessly, authentically. Thank you for choosing to listen to this story among thousands of stories out there. Like and subscribe to continue listening to the latest stories.